again with another Couch Potato General Manager video, another 2022 NFL mock draft reaction. This time around, we're reacting to Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of the 2022 NFL draft cycle. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Daniel Jeremiah's work, former scout, host of the Move the Sticks podcast. I'm a big fan of his, certainly being a former scout working with the Baltimore Ravens in their front office. He has a lot to offer, and we wanted to get into his mock draft, give our thoughts, give our reactions, see what kind of surprised us, what we agree with, what we disagree with. So without further ado, Drew, let's jump right into it. It's now becoming a trend. It is now certainly a trend. In fact, I posted a question on Couch Potato General Manager's community page, and majority is going with Evan Neal, the offensive tackle from Alabama, as the first pick in the 2022 NFL draft. I think more and more people are of the mindset, hey, we need to do what's in the best interest of our quarterback, of the franchise. And we got some parts, Cam Robinson, Jawan Taylor, we're not necessarily sure about their futures. In Duval, go ahead and get an offensive tackle. In this case, he's electing Evan Neal.
I'm not going to hate on it. It's either the top two tackles or it's the top two edge players. So he went with Neal. I have no issues, no qualms about it. As a guy I would go with, I prefer, but I'm not going to hate on the pick. Thinking about what the Jaguars could do or what they should do, I think tackle is the way to go. Left tackle, protect your quarterback. And I think if you want to win football games, you're going to have to score points, and I think you got to protect your quarterback and you got a running back, one of the best, I think, in the league, and James Robinson back there. Just get him the football and let's run it.
Yeah, and of course you get Travis Etienne back.
I
think Laviska Shenault, I think San Francisco does a great job of kind of laying out somewhat of a blueprint in terms of how to leverage his skill set with Deebo Samuel. Not obviously not the same exact player, but certainly a similar skill set there. Need to add some perimeter weapons, certainly, but I'm with you. We've talked about it ad nauseum to this point that in this passing league, in a league that is designed to facilitate offense and points, you got to be able to score week in and week out in order to put yourself in a position to make it to the playoffs. Defense still wins championships, but over the course of an 18-week regular season, you're going to have to score points, and it starts by getting things figured out up front. Moving right along at Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of the 2022 NFL draft cycle, he has the Detroit Lions going with Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan. Now, of course, this has kind of been that conversation, right? Whether it be Kayvon Thibodeau, the edge from Oregon, or Hutchinson. He ultimately goes with Hutchinson here. You've gone on record in terms of your thoughts about these players, what their strengths are. Give me a little bit of your scouting report on Hutchinson.
He's a technician. He's got power. Always has a plan. He's a guy who can play on both sides. You can mix and match with him. Like you said, he's a hometown product. It makes too much sense not to go with him here, right? So I can't. There's nothing I can really say that doesn't. You know what I mean? It just makes too much sense. 2 + 2 is 4 here, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they need more teeth in terms of their pass rush. I think there's even more growth.
Definitely.
To your point, that kind of burst off the line of scrimmage, him timing up snaps. That there's a certain level of tenacity that he plays with. I think that will align with what they're trying to build in Detroit with Brad Holmes. And then of course, Dan Campbell, the head coach. With the third overall pick, Daniel Jeremiah has the Houston Texans selecting Kyle Hamilton. So yes, absolutely. Surprise. This is the first I am seeing of the safety out of Notre Dame, the all-world, very talented safety out of Notre Dame, landing in Houston, going as high as the third overall pick. As much as I like the player, I have reservations about this particular selection.
Yeah, I mean, it's the position that's the furthest away from the football, and you want to, in a team that's not that talented, one of the worst in the league, if not the worst roster in the league, you want to be able to draft players that are going to be closer to the football and then kind of work your way out. I think here, though, you're talking about he has the potential to be the most talented player in the draft, just in terms of what he can do. Yeah. And again, this is a player, if you're going to draft him high, as I would say at the very least in the top 10, or in my opinion, if you're going to draft him, period, it has to be in a defense where you move pieces around and things don't stay the same after the snap. It can't be, we're just going to drop back in this cover 3, cover 2, and we're going to say, no, you got to have the Legos. We got to be moving the pieces around. I don't like the pick for the Texans. I understand it from a perspective of, hey, this is the best player. He's the best player in the draft. arguably.
Sure.
And we just want to continue to add talent. And obviously the Texans, they're not going to turn this thing around in 1 year, but I don't think drafting a safety is going to turn this thing around any faster. I think drafting, either in the trenches or a quarterback would probably
make the most sense.
Bear some more fruit. Bear fruit quicker. I should say.
Quicker.
Yeah.
Generally, teams, what they want to do when they enter the draft is, as opposed to drafting for need, draft the best player available, right? And again, we're talking about Kyle Hamilton being perhaps one of the top 3 players in the entire draft. He's going to be the top player in the draft on some teams' boards, right? So from that perspective, I certainly understand it, but I'm with you. That if you're going to rebuild this thing appropriately, I don't know that safety at this juncture, as talented as he might be, the way you want to build it. Typically, you want to build it inside out, to your point, right? When you mentioned closer to the line of scrimmage, the games are won and lost in the trenches. You mentioned that you do a single high or a 2 deep or whatever the case would be. That's not how you want to use Kyle Hamilton exclusively. He has to be the moving chess piece, and perhaps that's what the Texans have in mind here. You know what I'm saying? There's been a few occasions over the years where defenses were built around a particular player. One of the guys that comes to mind immediately is Brian Dawkins. I thought the Philadelphia Eagles built their defense for a stretch of several years around Brian Dawkins, but you got to have some other horses in place as well in order to actually make that work. So an interesting selection here. Certainly understand it from a talent standpoint, but as far as the Texans, really building this thing and being able to turn the page as quickly as possible, probably not the direction that we would go in.
Let me ask you, if he is of the caliber of this player I'm going to say in a second, would you take him? If you know that's what you're getting, and I'm going to say it, I know you're going to be cringing. If that's Ed Reed you're drafting, are you drafting Ed Reed, or are you going elsewhere with the Texans? Yep.
No, you can't do stuff like that, man. You can't ask me questions like that.
Let me just go to the very top.
I'm a Canes fan. That's my favorite safety of all time.
Right.
That's a tough one for me. We're talking about 20 years ago. And I don't want to downplay the importance and significance of quality play, upper tier, upper echelon play from the safety position. You know what I mean? But that team, those Ravens teams already had certain pillars already in place. You understand what I'm saying? Of course you had Ray Lewis. You had Dallas Thomas. You had Jamie Sharper, Bullware. You had a number of stars already on that team. Now, of course, Reed just took it to a completely different level when they added him to the mix. And that's kind of what I anticipate from Kyle Hamilton. If I'm an organization, I might be middle of the pack, and I think I'm a safety away from people who are on elite defense. Then I might get aggressive and try to move up to acquire a Kyle Hamilton, because I think he's that good. But for the Texans specifically, I don't think this is an apples to apples comparison between the Ravens of 2000, 2001 and the Texans of 2022. You understand what I'm saying? I think those two teams are very different. Ed Reed was a later first-round pick. I believe he was 24th overall the year he was selected. So, again, I don't want to depress the value of the position. Of course, the NFL does tend to do that. But those teams are very different. I think those teams, in terms of where they are as the foundation of the organization, very different places. With the 4th overall pick, the New York Jets making the first of 2 first-round picks, Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting Kayvon Thibodeau. Now, across the board, I think almost exclusively until I've seen this particular mock draft, Kayvon Thibodeau's gone within the first 3 picks, 1, 2, or 3. Wherever he ultimately lands, it's 1, 2, or 3. This is as far as I've seen him fall. And Daniel Jeremiah actually thinks that there may be a scenario where Thibodeau slides a little bit in the first round. What do you think about that? And what do you think about him landing in New York with the Jets?
I like the pick just in terms of he's a guy who's gonna be an immediate impact player coming off the edge. Guy you can drop him back into coverage, do a couple of cute things with him, but obviously you want him rushing the passer. It's possible that we
don't want no cute things around here.
No, we don't know cute things.
Go get the quarterback.
Listen. All coordinators do it.
And Robert Saleh's defense,
there's no cuteness. That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's right. So In terms of him slipping, it is possible. Obviously, he's coming off an injury. You're talking about all the offensive tackles that could be coming out in front of him, because it could, teams could trade up, make sure they get their guy. And also you have guys who that potentially could be rising here. We got the Senior Bowl coming up. You got the Shrine Bowl, all those bowls that are coming up, and guys kind of work their way in, and teams get an early look at those guys, in terms of like actually putting your eyeballs, being there in person, seeing those guys. So that is a possibility. I'm not upset about the pick because the Jets do need pass rush. They do need a receiver. They do need offensive line. Obviously, I don't hate the pick, and I think at this point too, that's probably the best player available.
Oh yeah,
at that point. So why not? So. And it's at a premium position in edge. So yeah.
Yeah, if Thibodeau's on the board at fourth overall to the Jets, I don't think there's any question. I don't think you're entertaining any phone calls. I think you rush to the podium with the selection. You pair him up with Carl Lawson coming back from the injury, and when you're playing that cover 3 defense, of course you're trying to get home with 4. You're not blitzing a ton. You're trying to affect the passer with 4 and really put the pressure on the offense with 7 in coverage. You understand what I'm saying? And I think with Thibodeau and a healthy Carl Lawson, that goes a long way. And then of course you can't forget about the steps, the maturation of Quentin Williams as a 3 technique. I think now you're working with hot oil now. You know what I'm saying? You can really get to cooking with that type of front, getting after it. All right, moving right along with the 5th overall pick, the New York Giants. Again, they have 2 first-round selections as well. Both New York teams have 2 first-round selections. Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting who he believes is the top tackle in this class, and you would agree with them. You've been in that boat for at least a few months now. And Ikem Ekwonu, offensive tackle from NC State. Now, I'm a big proponent of to improve their offensive line, whether it be Evan Neal, Ikem Ekwonu. I wouldn't necessarily rule out Charles Cross, although you may want to decide to opt for him just a bit later. But of course, there are people who believe Charles Cross is the best tackle in this class. So either of those 3 players here works for me. And in this case, they get Ekwonu. Tell those that are watching, if they haven't seen any of our content previously, why you think Ekwonu is the best tackle in the class.
Because he is you're trying to get into the bar or the club. He's the guy standing outside, checking IDs, making sure no shenanigans is going on, just not gonna let you in. You know what I mean? Right. He's the bodyguard. He's the bouncer, man, and he's nasty, man. He's looking to punish you every play. And so let's go ahead and let's have Andrew Thomas on one side, the technician, and Nasty on the other side. Yeah. And let's protect our quarterback, whoever that is.
Yeah. And let's get Saquon on the edges. Let's see if he can kind of recapture some of that explosiveness that we saw when he initially entered the league. We saw a year ago that defense take some strides. I think they can continue to be a good, solid group. If they add a few more pieces here, whether it be a combination of the draft, free agency, I think they can be a very respectable group. But they don't have a chance. They don't have a chance if they can't reestablish the line of scrimmage. Start playing on the defensive side of the ball. You understand what I'm saying? Right. And Ekwonu paired up with Andrew Thomas, who takes a nice step this past season in year 2, I think really gets the ball rolling. It gets you headed in the right direction with the new regime. All right. With the 6th overall pick, there was a little bit of a surprise with the 3rd overall pick. 3 picks later, another surprise in my estimation. Again, another player that I think we both like a lot, but I can't get with this one, man. Ahmad Gardner to the Carolina Panthers. I can understand the allure of perhaps pairing him up with J.C. Horn, but considering the amount of draft capital the Panthers have invested on the defense in the corner position in particular, we can run down the list. Of course, there's J.C. Horn, Keith Taylor, Troy Pride. They traded for C.J. Henderson. They added Stephon Gilmore, who I don't believe will be back in 2022. But the point is that they have put so much capital and invested so much in that position, and they have a glaring issue at not only the quarterback position, but perhaps even more pressing is the offensive line, man. What do you think about this pick?
Yeah, I think this is the only pick you can't make of all the positions that you can pick. And I understand Gardner's a baller. I get it. I understand it. You can play I don't know. You traded for him. I mean, maybe. I can't get with it, bro. I'm trying to make it make sense in my mind.
You can never have enough of these guys. Don't get me wrong. I don't want our audience to think that we're we're losing sight of the fact that, especially in this day and age, I mentioned it before with the pandemic and everything, the attrition that takes place, you can never have enough quality cornerbacks. And Gardner's a special player, don't get me wrong, but they have a huge issue along their offensive line, right? Hopefully, with Brady Christensen, he continues to develop. I thought he went through some of his rookie pains, but flashed ability. Taylor Martin would feel good about, but the other three positions?
No, sir.
No, you cannot roll that out there. So, this pick, you can only make this pick if you spend, crazy amounts of money to get that offensive line situated.
Right.
And that's the only way I feel you can make this particular pick. Unless, of course, you're basically saying, hey, Matt Rule, listen, this is in your vision. You know what I mean? Build that defense, make it, as formidable as possible, and then let Sam Darnold carry us. I guess. I struggle with it. Again, I don't want to disparage the player because, watching Sauce Gardner's film, of course, we got a scouting report on the channel. Go ahead and check that out. It's a lot of fun, and he's going to be a good player. The traits, all the ability necessary in order to be successful at the NFL level. I think he'll be fine in man. I'd like to see him in the deep third. You know what I'm saying? But again, for this particular team, I certainly question it. We have the New York Giants back on the clock with the 7th overall pick, and Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting Devin Lloyd out of Utah. Now, I don't hate it. With Ika Ekwonu, of course, that to me is a slam dunk pick. Again, whether it be Cross, Ekwonu, Neal to the Giants, absolutely love it. Devin Lloyd addresses perhaps one of the, outside of perhaps edge rusher, and they may have a question mark at safety with Jabril Peppers maybe entering free agency. Devin Lloyd is a missile, man. I think he sets the tone. I think he really legitimizes your second level. I think, of course, with Blake Martinez, you're solid, but this guy has star power.
Yeah, and that's the Giants is one of those teams with at the second level they don't have that star power at that level of the defense, and adding this guy will do that. And I would be interested to know who's going to end up being the coach there, to use him in a manner that isn't just plain Jane drop back into coverage and we're going to zone it up, because this is again another one of those teams who plays two safety high, don't let anything behind you type of thing. They don't do it to the level of the Eagles. Nobody does. But, I need a little bit more pizzazz if you're going to draft this guy, because he's more than just drop back into coverage. And I think he needs to be a guy coming off the edge, and occasion a guy you can send blitz, a guy you can kind of move around the defense.
I want him attacking.
Yeah, don't.
I want him not to say that he can't play in space, not to say that he can't cover or whatever. He checks all the boxes as far as I'm concerned. But a missile like that, you want him to fire his gun. You don't want to necessarily have him playing on his heels. You know what I'm saying? You want him on the ball of his toes, going downhill as much as you possibly can from a defensive standpoint in terms of the scheme. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons on the clock, and again, a departure from what we've seen for most mock drafts. And of course, it's not always necessarily the player. It's just you generally see a specific position, being drafted by a particular team. But Daniel Jeremiah goes in a different direction, and I'm not mad at it. Because Atlanta has a lot of holes. And you talk about teams that have a dearth of talent and expiring contracts, and the Falcons, man, they have to blow this thing up. I don't see there's any way that you can kind of piece it together, even though they were competitive this past season for the most part. In order for them to be a consistent playoff threat, they're really going to have to kind of destroy and rebuild here. But of course, Jeremiah has him selecting Treylon Burks, receiver out of Arkansas. But before you get to Burks, I just want to mention that this makes sense to me from the perspective of you don't know what's going to happen with Calvin Ridley. There's really nothing behind Ridley, right? There's a dearth of weapons. Cordell Patterson contract is expired. Ridley is going into the final year of his deal. He could be a trade piece, you know what I'm saying, to kind of help jumpstart that rebuild. Again, we don't know what exactly is going on with him. I believe they only have one other receiver, Frank Darby, under contract right now. Burks is the guy that we think will ultimately be the top receiver selected. It hasn't necessarily worked out that way with a lot of mock drafts, but I think, and I believe you'd agree with me. Once he tests, I think it's going to be a done deal.
Size, speed, quickness. Get him the ball in space. He can make things happen. Can go up and get the football. He's the total package in terms of the receiver position. He's definitely probably not the most polished. We can name a few, but I don't need you to be polished if you have all those things. We'll figure that out later, right? And in terms of the Falcons, the only position that you would say, okay, we don't need to draft is the tight end position because they did that last year. Outside of that, you can pick anything. Best player available.
They could very well go best player available.
Yeah,
they very well. Yeah.
I don't hate the pick, but if I'm the Falcons, I'd probably trade down. But obviously, Jeremiah's not doing that here. I assume that'll come later.
The mock draft wasn't built that way, but yeah, this is one of those prime trade down candidates because of the just the holes throughout the roster, and then of course this is a team that struggled to affect the passer. George Karlaftis being on the board here is someone to consider. If you're high on a Jabo. I think there'll probably be another edge rusher that kind of flies up the board throughout this draft process in that top 15 conversation. So, yeah, they only had 18 sacks this past season. So they definitely have a lot of concerns in Atlanta. Next up, the Denver Broncos, and we have our first quarterback coming off the board, and it's Kenny Pickett, redshirt senior from Pittsburgh. Now people are knocking him. I don't really know why. Age is not a concern to me at the quarterback position.
No,
that's one of the position there. I'm not necessarily. We're not talking about Chris Winkie here. You understand what I'm saying? So Kenny Pickett currently is my QB1. Daryl Jeremiah is in that same boat. What do you think about Pickett to Denver?
Yeah, I like it. You're giving a guy who is already talented in his own right, a guy who can take over a team, lead the team into a situation where the only thing that they're lacking outside of maybe offensive line is the quarterback position, because they got receivers, they got a tight end, they have running backs, defense is pretty much ready to go as long as they can stay healthy. Listen, this is a team that definitely will be either drafting a quarterback or buying for one, in free agency, because this is a team without a coach right now, and whoever that coach is going to get to be able to pick his guy. And if it's not in free agency, now obviously I would love to see Kenny Pickett on this team, because I think this is one of those things where he's gonna make a run for the playoffs. I think he's gonna make a run for the playoffs, bro. I think he's gonna challenge the Chiefs in that division there. It's a little early if it happens.
A little bit.
If it's gonna happen,
a little bit.
I'm just talking here. But
to your point, that's exactly what Denver needs. They need a guy who can get the ball to all the playmakers that you mentioned, and that is what Kenny Pickett does. And then of course, you get the added bonus that he can make plays inside and outside of structure. So I'm completely okay. If Denver ends up going with a quarterback 9th overall, as of right now, that's a guy that I have pegged for them as well. With the New York Jets rounding out the top 10, their second first-round pick, Daniel Jeremiah has them selecting Trent McDuffie.
He's high on him.
Very high on him.
Yeah.
Very high on him. And you know what? In this particular scheme, it makes a lot of sense. We were just talking about it before we went on air in this video, in this mock draft reaction, and we were a little, not miffed or frustrated per se, but it certainly makes the evaluation a little bit more challenging when a particular scheme has the corner do one thing predominantly, right? But again, McDuffie is adept at it when he can keep his eyes on the cornerback. There was a lot of outside technique, bail, press bail or off coverage and bail, a lot of cover 3, a lot of quarters and a lot of cover 3, and that's what they're going to play in New York. So from a schematic standpoint, it's certainly a fit. McDuffie is, I believe, a first-round talent. He's kind of on that first-round border for me as of right now in terms of my evaluation. But what do you think about him coming off the board before the likes of a Stingley, Andrew Booth, for example? Gardner, of course, is already off the board.
It's the fit. It's the scheme. And if you're gonna be that zone corner, gonna play off, you got to be able to tackle. And this is probably the best tackling corner in the class.
Yeah.
And you got to have click and close. You can't be a zone corner and can't get there, bro.
That's true. That's absolutely true. You got to be able to make up that ground. Yes.
And he has that. So
he does. That trigger is crazy.
Yeah.
It's a hair trigger. Yeah, definitely. No. I think the fit is phenomenal. I'm of the mindset though, probably.
Trade down.
That's you know how I am, and of course it takes two. It may not be available to him, but I think a guy like Andrew Booth obviously could thrive in this system as well, considering the way, he closes. Next up, we have the second quarterback coming off the board here in the first 11 picks, and that's Matt Corral to the Washington football team. I know Taylor Heineke is your boy, but Washington needs some more juice. They need some more playmaking ability out of that quarterback position, and Corral certainly has that. What do you think about him from a polish standpoint, though?
No, I think there's gonna have to be some work to be done there. I think he's improved every year he's played. One of the biggest things was, you wanted to see with him going into this year or every year since he's been in college is just not turn the football over, go through your progressions, just the normal things that you would want from a quarterback. And he's every year he's gotten better with that, but you want to see more of that because he's a guy who wants to take chances. He wants to get the football down the field. So I'm not going to kill him for it because he's improved that. And listen, this is one of those, this pick right here is like the Rashad Bateman to Baltimore. Like every mock you see, it's just there. It's just, that's what it is. You know what I mean? Because everybody just feels that's the pick. The
12th overall pick. The Minnesota Vikings are selecting a cornerback. Let's make no mistake about it. Whether it be, us at Couch Potato General Manager or the national pundits, everybody has a cornerback landing in Minnesota. In this case, it's going to be Derek Stingley from LSU.
Yeah, and I'm not mad at the pick. The guy's super talented. I wonder what kind of defense they'll run there in Minnesota once the coach is selected. But I think I think he fits any scheme.
Hey, I hear your boy Ra is going to be interviewed. Hey
man, get that man a chance, man.
Yeah, man, I think it's time. I think it's definitely time for Ra to get back into a head coaching gig, man. He's acquitted himself well, whether it be in Atlanta or in Los Angeles, right? So before we move on, I do want to point out that Daniel Jeremiah in his mock draft, he does cite Derek Stingley's inconsistent effort, right? And we've talked about this. We've talked about this quite a bit to this point. We basically said, I mean, literally has all the tools. He is prototypical, right? I think when he's locked in, he plays the position the right way. You know what I'm saying? Like, when the ball's in the air and he's on the boundary, he gets his head around consistently. He gets his body into the receiver to pin him to the sideline without interfering. I mean, it's textbook. But there are lapses, though. There's lapses. And I don't know if it's inconsistent effort or perhaps concentration. If it's the latter, I feel really good about Stingley. You know what I'm saying? It's a matter of just really getting him honed in and making sure that he's on the field because, of course, the injury concerns. But effort is a little bit different. That is concerning. That is a little concerning to me. Next up, we have the Cleveland Browns with the 13th overall pick, and DJ has them selecting Trayvon Walker, the edge from Georgia. Now, I think both of us are thinking receiver at this point. They really need to give Baker Mayfield every opportunity to prove that he is the guy long term there. But there is a need opposite Myles Garrett. I don't expect Clowney to be back in Cleveland, right? And I believe with this selection, certainly DJ's not expecting it either. What do you think about Walker the player? And then, of course, what do you think about perhaps prioritizing edge over receiver for the Browns specifically?
No, I'm definitely going receiver because you got some high quality receivers that you passed up to draft Walker. And I actually like Walker a lot. And this is a guy who did a bunch of different things for Georgia, dropped back into coverage, played defensive tackle, played defensive end. They did a bunch of games up front with him. He's very adept at doing that, setting things up. He's what I call a greasy player. Like he's getting in there, getting in the mud. No issue. Just eat dirty. Whatever you need me to do, I'm gonna go in there. If I gotta go in there and be a missile and crash in and destroy things, to disrupt things, I'll do that. So if that's your type of defensive lineman, I think he's outstanding at that. But just in terms of pass up receiver here, I can't do it, bro.
Can't do it. Can't bring yourself to do it, huh?
Because at the end of the day, I always say this: we need to find out what our quarterback is, right? Yes. And you do that by protecting him up front, which they've done, and if they can stay healthy, obviously, and providing him with the receivers that he needs, so you can evaluate him properly. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Baker Mayfield is a drop back. Get the ball out, rhythm. Quarterback. Yep. And if you don't have the receivers that can get separation, it's a little tough to evaluate him, in terms of, hey man, I didn't let the football go because guys are covered. You know what I mean? Sure. So, and there's plenty of guys in this draft that can get open. that I think could have gone here with this pick.
Certainly understand that. Next up, the Ravens, DJ's old team, with the 14th overall pick. He has him selecting Trevor Penning, the offensive tackle from Northern Iowa. Now, Drew, I got to give you credit. for this particular pick. Not that Daniel Jeremiah saw our head-to-head mock draft,
Right.
but certainly you're the only person I've seen mock or select Penning to the Ravens with the 14th overall pick. Apparently, DJ is high on him. I think the NFL is high on Penning in terms of the tools and what he ultimately can be. In my opinion, the Ravens have a window. They have a window here, right? Before Lamar gets that big money, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Try to maximize things. And I don't know that Penning, even though Daniel Jeremiah suggests that he's going to be ready to go immediately, I think there may be some growing pains. You understand what I'm saying? What do you think?
So I'll say this: it can't be any worse than this year.
That's
number
true.
one.
That's true.
Number two, I'm going to say that offensive line coaches, offensive coordinator coaches are going to look at him and say he's got the size, he's got the tenacity, and he has the will and the want to play the position.
Right.
And he's got a couple of issues in terms of technique that I know that I can fix immediately. Right. And if that's the case,
you're good to go.
Yeah.
The Philadelphia Eagles with back-to-back selections, and we're going to knock them out both. And I think they're getting perhaps incredible value here because Drake London is growing on me, man.
Yes,
by
sir.
the day.
Yes,
By
sir.
the day, he's climbing my board. and I think George Karlaftis, the edge from Purdue, slips a little bit in this mock draft, right?
He ain't going to the Giants this time.
One of the very few instances where we've seen him not go to the Giants or get past Atlanta at 8. Of course, they have 3 first-round picks. It started off with Karlaftis and Drake London. And I've come around. In terms of Philadelphia, perhaps turning the page on Jalen Reagor, perhaps. I mean, obviously, he's still going to be on the team. Still a young player. Perhaps he ultimately puts it together. But Devontae Smith, Drake London combination, man, that's scary. That's scary
with Dallas Goedert. So yeah. I like it a lot. It's a different type of receiver because you don't want all of the same receiver on your football team. You got to have variety. You got to have your chocolate, got to have your vanilla, and got to have your strawberry. What's that? Neapolitan? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, Neapolitan.
Yeah, you got to have your Neapolitan in terms of your receiving core, and he's going to do that for you. He does a bunch of different things, not just a guy that has a big time catch radius, but he's a guy who will go up and get the football. He's a guy who can make people miss and elusive and turn a 8-yard route into a 40-yard touchdown. You know what I mean? So. And he's a big target for Jalen Hurts, who's not necessarily the most accurate. So I like the pick in terms of the player, but man, I got to go defense, bro. For them, it's going to be defense for the first 3 picks. I'm going to do my best to do the Panthers did in terms of just going defense. But this is me assuming that they're going to change their scheme, right? But if they're not going to, they're going to continue to do what they've been doing.
Yep.
All right, Drake London. All right, I'll give you that for that. And Karlaftis, I mean, can play anywhere on the defensive line. Obviously, you want him probably coming off the edge, and we're not sure what's going to happen with that entire defensive line with Philadelphia. Some guys may walk, some guys.
There's going to be change.
There's going to be change. Absolutely. So you bring a guy in who's versatile, can play play anywhere, plug him in, play, and you can play some games up front with him as well. So I like both of the picks. They're solid.
I'm of the mindset that you absolutely have to address the defensive line. And the second level of your defense early,
right.
And you have 3 first-round picks. Of course, there's the conversation about leveraging those 3 picks and perhaps going to get a veteran quarterback, i.e. Russell Wilson. I think that's something that you have to consider. But I do believe ultimately Philadelphia moves forward with Jalen Hurts. I think you're playing with house money with Jalen Hurts, and you really fill out the rest of this roster. Karlaftis ultimately comes in. I think he's a steal at the 15th overall pick in terms of what he brings to the table, as far as being able to affect the passing game and also, hold up in the run and then provide positional flexibility. You can do different things with him in terms of the down line. If you can get that linebacking position situated, Devin Lloyd is off the board here. Nakobe Dean is a guy that I think would look good in a Philadelphia Eagles uniform. I am not opposed to getting Drake London here because of the sheer talent and upside and the fact that, again, the theme is you got to be able to score points. And the points come out of the passing game. We know Philadelphia could run the football. When they were at their best, they were able to control the line of scrimmage and really get done on the ground. But they got to be more dynamic in the passing game. Now, that starts by throwing it to Six. That starts by throwing it to Devontae Smith. But if you add Drake London to the mix with Dallas Goedert, now they're putting pressure. They're putting real pressure on the opposition. All right, we're halfway through Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of 2022. And up next, we have the Los Angeles Chargers selecting Bernhard Raimann, offensive tackle from Central Michigan. Now, the idea here is you bookend him with Rashawn Slater, who obviously acquitted himself very well this past season, and you secure Justin Herbert. What do you think about this pick as opposed to shoring up perhaps that run defense?
Y'all hear that silence? Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button real quick. Let's get back into this mock. Yeah, man. Don't come on. And share the video, by the way, too. Don't be selfish. No, I like this pick because one of the things I was thinking too with this team, I think this is the first time I've actually seen an offensive lineman go to the Chargers and all the mocks that I've looked at, is to bookend it, right? Slater on one side and Raimann on the other. And, I got a couple issues with Raimann, but I think those are things that we can work out in terms of technique wise. But he's a solid tackle as far as I'm concerned. But passing up that D, I don't know if I can pass up trying to fix that D line. Maybe we fix it later in the draft. Maybe that's the thought process because it is something you're going to have to do, whether you do it at the second level with the linebacker or I prefer that we do it with a defensive tackle, defensive lineman of some sort. Take your pick. Jordan Davis seems to be the guy that always goes there. So I see where he's going, man. Depends on what you do in the offseason in the second round, man. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't hate it.
The reason why I'm okay with it is because it's about protecting the quarterback. It's about the most important position group. The Chargers for a very, very long time. I think you can go back as far as when LaDainian Tomlinson was doing his thing.
Yeah.
Haven't had a upper echelon offensive line. You know what I mean? There was a point in time where they were perhaps, and this is during the AJ Smith being the GM type days, like he was just killing the draft, killing the draft.
And then don't bring anybody.
And then don't pay nobody. You know what I mean? But of course, he just kept on nailing the draft, and they had an awesome offensive line. And it's been a while. It's been a long time since the Chargers could say that. They always were dealing with so many different injuries and just couldn't keep the same five on the field. If you can get that solidified here with this particular pick, I'm okay with it. And then to your point, we focus on really shoring up that run defense throughout the rest of the draft. All right. Next up, the New Orleans Saints with the 18th overall pick, and Daniel Jeremiah has them selecting Garrett Wilson, wide receiver from Ohio State. I think this one is very self-explanatory, very straightforward and simple. And I'm a huge Wilson fan. I think whomever is playing quarterback for the Saints, he's going to make their life easier. And he's the type of guy that they've been missing. Now, of course, if you could pair him up with the Michael Thomas with his head on straight, I mean, now like I said, you're cooking with hot oil at that point. But even if Wilson has to come in right away, slide in as a receiver one, I think he certainly has the talent to do so.
Like, when's the last time you saw a Sean Payton offense where he had two or three options where he's like, okay, he has a variety of receivers and they're actually talented, bona fide talented players. Like, it's been a minute. You know what I mean? He's always kind of it's not for a lack of trying back then. I'd say now it's for me, it's a lack of trying. But back then, when you had Debry Henderson and Marquise Colston and things like that, you kind of saw it. But I'm talking about the Saints having a Michael Thomas if he'll stay, getting you a Garrett Wilson, and adding one more guy that you can say, okay, now we got a mainstay of three guys that now I can play with. You know what I mean? Because I don't know that we've ever seen the Sean Payton offense at its full potential because of the type of receivers that, or the receiving core period that he consistently has out there.
At the height of the Saints offense with Drew Brees at the control, and of course it was Drew Brees, right? So Drew Brees is just dealing, you know what I'm saying? He's deadly accurate, he's getting the ball out quickly, you know what I'm saying? And he's finding the open man on a consistent basis, right? Reading that whole field. That works when you have that type of quarterback, where you have those receivers with their specialty roles. You got your possession guy, you got your field stretcher here, you got your gadget guy, you got your short to intermediate slot guy, whether it came in the form of a Lance Moore or Willie Snead. You know what I mean? There was always, Marcus Colston became Michael Thomas. You know what I'm saying? The Devery Henderson, Robert Meacham became, Marquez Callaway and even Kevin White to a lesser degree. You know what I'm saying? It was always some form of that, right? But what we've been saying, what we've been calling for is obviously you need at least one more guy on the perimeter in addition to Michael Thomas to really make a difference, to really put pressure on the defense. And then why can't we get that in that player? Why can't we get all of those skill sets? Garrett Wilson has that. Motoring right along here, we have the 19th overall selection. Philadelphia is making their final first-round picks. They started off with George Karlaftis, back-to-back. They selected Drake London. With the 19th overall pick, Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting Kenyon Green. Now, with Jason Kelce probably on the move, this makes a lot of sense. I'm a little surprised to see Green this late. What do you think about Green landing here? Now, of course, they went offense with 2 of their 3 picks. I know you're not a fan of that, but I do know that you're a big fan of Kenyon Green's game.
Landon Dickerson. Who you drafted last year, and then you insert Green stage left. It makes sense. Kelce can't play forever. He is one of, if not the lightest center in the league. You know what I mean? So you want to beef up your offensive line a little bit by kicking Dickerson over there and then Green inside. So and Green is a guy who's played all over the line of scrimmage from guard, tackle. I'm not sure if he played center. It wouldn't surprise me if he did. But I think his best position probably is guard. But he brings you versatility so you can make moves if need be.
Are you giving Howie Roseman a pass here, considering the players that he got, or are you lamenting? Are you lamenting passing up on a Dean here and not coming away with a corner?
I gotta go corner, bro.
You gotta go corner.
But I understand the pick. I get it. I get it from
the value is great.
Yeah, the value is great.
The value is great. Yeah, and again, I struggle to knock offensive line selections. Unless the player isn't worth that pick. I struggle because it is absolutely the most important position group. The 20th overall pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they of course have an albatross of an offensive line in terms of just how poor that group has been. We have them selecting Charles Cross. Daniel Jeremiah has them selecting Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. I'm a little surprised to see Cross this late. Do you think there's a possibility that he slides this far?
I mean, if we pick out Daniel Jeremiah pick is sure. No, I think there's going to be a run on offensive tackles, and I also think there's going to be a run on cornerbacks.
On corners.
Once the run starts, you better get in. You better trade up. You better do what you got to do, and grab your guy. And I think Pittsburgh, it's either a quarterback or it's offensive tackle. There's no other position that they need to worry about here. If Cross falls this far, okay. Pull the trigger if you don't like any of the quarterbacks that are there that's left over, right? I'm absolutely okay with the pick. I don't think you can go wrong with any of the offensive tackles that are left, or linemen, I should say, that are left here for Pittsburgh, because they, like you said, it's an arbitrage. It's been bad. It's bad. So
it's real bad. Yeah. It's real bad. I mean, they got 5, of course, five offensive linemen, and there's a 5-man rush, and the guys coming scot-free in the A gap. Like
the numbers are even.
It's even, bro. What are you doing? Center guard, get it together. What are you doing? Anyway, moving right along, we have the New England Patriots up next, and Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting Jordan Davis in his mock draft. And he mentions the combination of Christian Barmore and Jordan Davis, and that would be a formidable duo in the interior of any defensive line. I certainly would pay to see that. However, there is an issue. There is an issue in terms of, again, that there's this underlying or overarching theme in terms of 18-game regular season, or rather 18-week regular season. Got to score points. The Patriots they lack explosiveness on the perimeter. There's a number of guys on the board here that can help you out in that area, and you opt for what, in my opinion, is a 2-down player. You know what I'm saying? I'm okay with Jordan Davis around this time of the draft, but not here in New England. I don't like it.
Yeah, I understand where he's going with it. I get it, because Belichick and that defense, and they like to put guys on specific roles in specific games, and they play it very well because they understand what that player can do. But you saw what happened in the playoff game, and when you start to get boat race, or you start to it starts to get away from you. Now you're putting it on your quarterback, and what is he going to do? Who is he throwing the football to, right?
Correct.
So and you don't have those weapons, and there's too many good receivers here to pass up to draft Jordan Davis, because your defense can't save you. It can't always save you, right?
No,
I know defense wins championships.
That's the point.
But like, what are we talking about?
like I said, it consistently throughout, our personal mock drafts, the various mock draft reactions that we've done, that is the overarching theme, is that there are going to be times, and these rules are set up where it's very difficult to play defense. Very difficult to play defense. You're going to have to score points. There are going to be weeks, there are going to be stretches where your offense simply has to outscore the opponent. It just comes down to that, man. You know what I mean? And Jordan Davis ain't, like he can help you keep some points off the board, but I'm telling you, in this league where, the more passes behind the line of scrimmage than ever, the quarterbacks are trying to get the ball out of their hands as quickly as possible and let the playmakers do the work. That mitigates the kind of impact Jordan Davis can have at times. You understand what I'm saying? So that's my concern there. And then speaking of talented receivers, it's the 22nd overall pick. The Las Vegas Raiders are selecting Chris Olave. And again, this one makes perfect sense to me.
I'm not going to say perfect sense.
No.
In terms of the position is needed, yes. And I think he would be fine playing for this team. And he would be...
I think Olave is going to run better than you think.
Think so?
I think he's going to run better than you.
So the way that the Raiders want to play, they got to have a guy though. No, and he may run better, but he ain't running 4.2, low 4.3. You know what I'm saying? Because that's what they need. They went out and got their Deshaun Jackson. He out there dropping passes as usual. You lose your Ruggs, and the offense just completely changes. And so I think they need that type of guy, and that guy was on the board, and they passed the buck.
But I said,
polished guy.
I'm not gonna knock him for going with the polish.
No, not at all.
Because you can find that field stretcher later in this draft. You can find them in free agency. So it's a question. I guess it comes down to this, right?
Yeah.
And I know where you come out on this. I want to really dispose this to kind of our listeners, our viewers here on the channel. Do you covet Jameson Williams' speed, right? So much so that you discount the fact that, of course, Chris Olave can run as well. He can back safeties off. Or do you go with a more polished receiver, a more of a technician? You know what I'm saying? Of course, you have Hunter Renfrow in the slot, but I don't think it. To me, it really just comes down to whom you think is going to consistently get open. You know what I mean? And if you think Jameson Williams is just fine at that, then yes, absolutely, that makes sense. Or perhaps Jahan Dotson. If you think he has more explosiveness than Chris Olave, but I think Chris Olave may turn heads. It's smooth. He's not busting it. You know what I'm saying? Right. It doesn't look like he's just covering a ton of ground, but I think in terms of straight line speed, I think he's okay. I think he could fit the bill.
He almost falls into the category of, and this happens all the time, where people don't give guys credit because it's so easy. It looks so easy. It's like, but you don't really understand that he's actually doing some incredible things, but because he does it so smooth, easy, sure, that you take it kind of for granted, right?
Take it for granted. Absolutely.
And that may be what happens to a lot of, in terms of people who are evaluating, the draft nicks, the media, all those things, I think the coaches will catch on and understand, okay, this guy is special, right? But he may fall into that trap for some people.
Yeah. I think he probably should have picked sooner to New England, to be perfectly honest with you. And then, of course, at that point, the Raiders draft Jahan Dotson, Jameson Williams, right? And we're not even having this discussion. Anyway, moving right along. Got the Arizona Cardinals up next, and they have some question marks certainly at edge. With Chandler Jones probably going to be an unrestricted free agent in all likelihood. David Ojabo is the selection here, but no, only 1 year of production. Very, very scarce playing time prior to his final year at Michigan. I know that's going to be a concern, but there's a lot to like about what he brings to the table. What do you think about the fit here in Arizona?
Yeah, I'm not mad at the pick. Obviously, I hope and pray that this team brings back Chandler Jones. There's no reason why they should not do what you got to do to keep that guy in the building, pair him up with Ojabo, a guy who's bringing He's bringing the hammer, the wrench, the screwdriver. He's bringing the saw. He's bringing everything that he needs to bring on every snap, and he's not going to allow you to relax. Where you can get him, where he's susceptible, is in the run game. Got to add maybe a couple more pounds. Got to get his technique right and those things. But you're getting a guy who's very talented. And a guy who's going to affect the passer on a consistent basis, and he's gonna make that offensive line maybe draw. I wouldn't say make them commit false starts, but he's gonna make them. It's gonna be a lot of holding. He'll because they're just not ready for what he's gonna bring every play. So, but I probably go offensive line here with this pick.
Yeah, they need to address the interior of their offensive line.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Perhaps shuffle the deck a little bit, because that is an issue. That is an issue. As quick, cat-like quick as Kyler Murray is, his ability to extend plays, whatever the case. I mean, you got to protect the quarterback. You got to protect your franchise here. Next up, the Dallas Cowboys, and DJ has selected Nakobe Dean. I think if Dean's on the board here, a really easy decision here. I think this is a really easy decision here. Of course, Jalen Smith obviously is no longer there. Leighton Vander Esch will probably be on the outs. I think you come back 2022 and you're flying all over the place with Dean and Jabril Cox, and then you free up Michael Parson a little bit to rush the passer even more frequently, because Randy Gregory might be on the move. Yeah, I think Dean, especially with his football IQ and instincts, I think he really tightens up that front seven. That front seven is already pretty talented, but I think that's kind of the exclamation point if they can land on Nakobe Dean in Dallas.
Yeah, because he's gonna free you up to let Parsons do what Parsons do, which is come off the edge. Which I think at this point we need that to happen. It's got to happen. It makes him almost a full-time pass rusher. I don't know if you want him every single down, but because you want to mix it up a little bit, not to get stale there, but. Yeah, man. I mean, you spoke about Dean. He has all the tools: new age linebacker, sideline to sideline, the total package, and you don't lose anything. When you talk about Vander Esch and you talk about Dean, I mean, it's not even a discussion. You know what I mean? So. Yeah,
Vander Esch has struggled with injury, and they're just the same level of physicality that he brought to the table during his first year. I just haven't seen it. I just haven't seen it. And like I said, Dean is an alpha, and you're going to put the green dot on his helmet. He's going to become the leader of that defense. As much as Micah Parsons has kind of taken the reins, but taking the bull by the horns in the absence of DeMarcus Lawrence while he was injured, Dean just has that type of presence, man, and he's a playmaker as well. So yeah, that would be an ideal pick for Dallas. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is a great pick as well. I think this is an easy one for me.
Fell in their lap, man.
Yes, absolutely. I know that the NFL, doesn't necessarily prioritize interior offensive linemen centers, early in the draft. But I think this is phenomenal value. And the Bengals, they need to improve their offensive line. There's no mistake about it. As explosive as they are, I've said it before. I'll continue to say it. Joe Burrow was the most sacked quarterback in the NFL this past season. You drop Tyler Linderbaum in there, and now we're talking. They're already scary good offensively. Now we're getting closer to a juggernaut at this juncture. We are moving towards juggernaut at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you ask yourself, what would they look like if they could block up front? Because he also, Burrow, was the most sacked quarterback. He would punish you. He's the best quarterback against the blitz.
Yeah, you want to drop 7. You want to drop 7. He is not as effective at this juncture in his career. He's still a young quarterback, still seeing things for the first time, still making those adjustments. There's a substantial drop-off in Joe Burrow's play when a team can apply pressure with just 4. You know what I'm saying? And that's the kryptonite to any quarterback, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? The best quarterbacks in the league, they make you pay when you try to send extra rushes. When you show your hand and man up across the board, they typically make you play. And Joe Burrow is already doing that. The Linderbaum gives you a fighting chance here when you're facing a quality 4-man rush.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's going to come in and be the immediate leader of that offensive line. And he's a guy who's going to point it out and let's protect this quarterback because.
All right. Next 2 picks, pair of AFC East teams. We have the Miami Dolphins selecting Daniel Faleo out of Minnesota. Big offensive tackle, 6'9", 380 pounds, Drew.
Bruh. So I forgot about him, right? And then I'm watching one of the games, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is that dude that's like 400 pounds, bro. 393, 6'9", 380. I'm like,
he's gonna be in Mobile too.
Yeah, he is.
So the one-on-ones gonna be crazy.
Listen, can't wait.
Crazy.
Can't wait. We're gonna have the footage for that. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the video. Don't be selfish. Yeah, this is kind of interesting in terms of that size of guy, with an offensive line that was the worst in the league, terrible, awful, horrible. I don't know how many definitions I got to use. It was bad. And this is a guy
all the definition.
And this is a guy who's playing right tackle. He didn't play the previous year, the pandemic year, if you want to call it. But this year he was a man amongst boys. He's a bully. And I think this is a pick that's needed. Again, with the Dolphins,
right?
Offensive line, just pick one, right? So let's go get the biggest guy.
Let's go get the biggest guy.
Get the biggest guy.
We're not sure who we want to pick, but we're gonna go get the biggest guy.
Biggest guy.
You know what I'm saying? Why not? Next up, the Buffalo Bills, and of course, we are anticipating Levi Wallace testing free agency. Yeah. Which leaves a need at corner, and Daniel Jeremiah has him selecting Kyler Gordon from Washington. Now, not unlike the Trent McDuffie conversation, there was a lot of zone coverage. Gordon typically lined up in press, and he would immediately bail with an outside technique. The reality is that even though Buffalo has played more man, and I think in order to be make those deep playoff runs, they're going to have to be able to play man more frequently. Right. You think that Gordon might be a little bit more equipped to play man coverage than McDuffie.
Yeah, he's a guy who has no issues, going up and jamming and pressing the receiver, but he's not a guy that's trying to destroy the receiver in terms of his press, right? He's just trying to kind of hang in the hip pocket, right? And then when the ball is thrown, he can go and attack it. Sure. And he is a guy who has some click and close, and he just likes to be near the receiver. There's corners that was kind of that way, where I'm not looking to kill you. I'm just looking to hang in your hip pocket. I'm looking to touch you, looking to feel you, see where you go, and then when the ball's thrown, attack the football. And that's kind of what he is. And he's also, I think he's a very good tackler, because I think in that scheme that you play, you can't not tackle. You know what I'm saying? There's some corners out there who are outstanding at coverage, but want no part of the running back coming around the corner. I think he has no fear. I don't know that he'll always make the tackle. Yeah, but
he's fairly willing. I've seen him lean on a receiver or two, but he's a pretty willing tackler. But he doesn't always make the play though. Right. McDuffie's bringing the ball carrier down. Yeah, McDuffie's definitely bringing the ball carrier down. Yeah. All right. We're getting towards the end here with Daniel Jeremiah's 2022 NFL mock draft, his first mock draft. And with the 28th overall pick, the Tennessee Titans are selecting Quay Walker, linebacker from Georgia. Now, of course, we know Georgia had an excellent defense, championship team. Yet another Georgia player here going in the first round. What do you think about Walker? I haven't seen a lot of Quay Walker in mock drafts to this point. What do you think about the position? We certainly understand that. We certainly understand that. What about the player?
So real quick, Daniel Jeremiah, make sure he gave Georgia love all over this mock draft.
Yeah, he did.
all over the place.
Yeah, he did.
But this is so Dean is the Lightning. Quay is the Thunder. Violence coming downhill, smacking folks in the mouth. He can play some coverage as well. He is the bigger of the two, 6'4", 240, while Dean's 6'2", 225. Yeah. Right. So it's a different
body type. Yeah.
And they did similar things, but you could just see the difference in terms of what they wanted to do for each player, right? Sure. And so I'm again, like you said, the position is fine, the player is fine. I understand it. There's nothing that he can't do. I would want to see what his combine numbers look like. I don't think he's overly fast or anything like that. But I would just wonder what those combine numbers look like.
Yeah, with Rashaan Evans, his contract situation, Harold Landry gonna go, could very well be a unrestricted free agent. I think Walker kind of gives you a nice blend of what those players bring to the table as well, to kind of help mitigate, that potential loss as far as the defense is concerned. All right, next up is the Detroit Lions, and Daniel Jeremiah has them going quarterback with the 29th overall pick, Malik Willis. Malik Willis. Malik Willis has really been your top quarterback in terms of your mock drafts. Generally speaking,
right.
you have leaned towards Malik Willis, considering the upside here. And assuming they go with Malik Willis here, I think this is the type of situation you do that in. You understand what I'm saying? Is that you already have an incumbent in place. There's no rush here with Willis. I think Willis is going to play sooner rather than later because, of course, it's Detroit, right?
Right.
You still only, and I don't want to take anything away from Amon-Ra St. Brown, but, they need to add more pieces to that puzzle. Again, we've talked about it. You got to score points, right? His emergence, though, has given Daniel Jeremiah the confidence to say, you know what, we'll delay us addressing the receiver position via the draft and go get our quarterback of the future here.
Yeah, this is like, and I've said it in mocks before, where if he's going to go to a team, it has to be a team that is lacking a ton of talent, and that you can just kind of either, you can sit him if you want, or you can just go out there and just let him play with what's out there, and you'll piece it together as things go along, versus going to a team. And I think he's going to have a learning curve larger than a Kenny Pickett.
Sure.
And maybe even a Matt Corral.
Right.
I think that learning curve would be a little bit bigger, or a little bit bigger. And he's played on a team that is him. You know what I mean? Like he ain't throwing the NFL talent while other guys are. You know what I mean? So you know what that looks like, right? Yeah. And the Lions, right now, I mean, they need help them. They need help, right? So. Let's just go ahead and throw him in there, and we'll figure it out later, because he's gonna be there for the long haul.
Yeah, I think depending on how the board shakes out, you can certainly select a quarterback here. Give you the opportunity to kind of play with that 5th-year option as well. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense to me. I believe very early in the mock draft process, you're thinking. This is during the season. This is during the heart of the season. Detroit was on their losing skid. Just couldn't come away with the win. At first they were just competing. They were competing their tails off, but just couldn't pull it out. And then they went into a little bit of a lull. And then they finally broke through. And you saw this team take on the personality of Dan Campbell, and you kind of see the vision that Brad Holmes has. Penei Sewell kind of figuring things out. And then, like I mentioned, the emergence of Amon-Ra St. Brown. You have some young talent here or there throughout that roster. They just need to stuff it with more. You need to stuff it with more. But my whole premise has been, let's not worry about quarterback until this team is right. I'm in a little bit different of a camp. You know what I'm saying? We've seen it too frequently where a quarterback is selected early to a team, is thrust into playing time, and they ruin him. They ruin him because you don't have quality coaching, because your offensive line isn't in place, because you're missing, the necessary weapons in order to actually challenge on the perimeter. I like the offensive line in Detroit, right? I think, it'll be interesting to see if Dan Campbell continues to call the plays, but the team certainly responded to him when he took over those responsibilities. The question is, do you have enough around a young quarterback in order to make sure that he's enjoying success, so that confidence starts to build, right? Because, as you always say, Drew, confidence is a hell of a drug. Once that confidence, because the tools are there, the physical ability is there, right? Once that confidence starts flowing, that's when players really start to take, those big steps. A lot of people have said Malik Willis could very well be the Josh Allen. And that's exactly what we saw with Josh Allen. They had the right play caller, the right organization, the right culture. Right, Brian Daboll has gotten the absolute most out of Josh Allen, and I think he's exceeded just about everybody's expectations. Daboll's going to land a head coaching gig this offseason, right? And then of course they said, you know what? We see it. We're going to make sure Josh Allen has everything he needs. So they go and trade for Stephon Diggs. They spent the money to get the Cole Beasley. They went back and got Gabriel Davis. They added Manny Sanders. Dawson Knox is taking this. You understand what I'm saying? So let's build this thing up. Let's build this thing up, because while Buffalo hasn't had a ton of success in recent years, right, until, of course, Josh Allen really started to come into his own, the Detroit Lions have a history of poor football and disappointment. So I don't want to go down the route of Joey Harrington. I don't want to go down the route. I don't want to waste Matthew Stafford. You understand what I'm saying? I want to make sure that this team is flush with talent. We can drop a talented quarterback in there, even though he might have some growing pains, and really get this thing going. So I certainly understand this pick at this point, particularly for the 5th-year option.
Right.
All right. Just a few more selections here in this mock draft reaction to Daniel Jeremiah, draft analyst extraordinaire. With the 30th pick, the Kansas City Chiefs are on the board, and he has them selecting Jameson Williams. Now, I don't think this is necessary. I know this is what a lot of people would like to see. I think the Madden enthusiasts certainly would like to see this. And of course, I'm not sure what defenses are going to do. If you got Jameson Williams on one side and you got or in a bunch with Tyreek Hill, and I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that. But I think I'm of the mindset that with Andy Reid's offense, you typically have a primary receiver. The tight end is heavily involved in the passing game, and you leverage your running backs, and then you have some complementary pieces outside of that. That has just been Andy Reid's MO since his days in Philadelphia. You understand what I'm saying? I can see them drafting a receiver, but probably not in the first round. I would prefer to see them for what they need, for what would best serve them. I think would be corner, a pass rusher, something along those lines.
Safety. Although I don't know if safety would be worth it at this point in the draft. But,
Brisker, I think Brisker's a guy that you got to consider. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the pick. I understand the pick. I get it. Want to continue.
Embarrassment of riches. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. You want to continue. And the thing about Williams is he is reliable. I don't know that the other receivers are or reliable enough, consistent enough. I think they're streaky. There's games where they show up and games where you're like, all right, bro, where were you at? You know what I'm saying? You balled the past 3 games and now you're dropping passes or not where you're supposed to be. So I just think it's so. I think those guys see the ball so infrequently because of the targets that Hill and Kelsey serve, man. Yeah, man. I just think it's so to me. For that reason, I don't know that I want to put this type of draft capital into that. It has nothing to do with Jameson Williams. It has nothing to do with Jameson Williams. It has more to do with how Andy Reid deploys his offense. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, it's almost in the same vein as drafting a superstar running back, but you don't run the football kind of thing, right? It's
correct.
Like, doesn't make sense. So yeah,
absolutely. All right, 2 picks left. We have the Tampa Bay Bucks with the 31st overall pick, and Joe, I'm just gonna let you have it. I'm gonna let you announce it because I know this is your guy. This is also your team, so you have the floor.
So I can see this team going corner, defensive line, or I can see these guys going receiver. And I know a lot of people are talking to Chris Godwin. He's coming back. Listen. I don't have no inside sources. I don't got none of that. I'm just gonna let you know Chris Godwin is not leaving the football team. He's too important to the team to leave, right? But they need another guy.
You slap him with the tag? Is that what you're doing?
Well, okay. He already got the tag.
Oh, you got the tag.
We'll tag him again if we have to, but I think they work it out.
Okay.
He's way too important to just let go. I think he's almost more important than Mike Evans because of what he does for the team.
He's a big slot. He's a big slot.
He's greasy. He can play blocks like crazy. Like he catches he does all the dirty work, right? But you also need another guy, man. Like you can see it when Brady's out there throwing it to Perriman and Tyler Johnson, who can't get right. You know what I mean?
It looks different.
Yeah, it looks different, right? You need somebody reliable, man. I keep talking about quarterbacks need people that are reliable, man. So, and I think Dotson is reliable, and he gives you more than what he looks like, right? He's not the biggest guy out there, but he can jump. He can jump out the gym. A guy with some speed. He can make people miss and turn a 5-yard route into a 60-yard touchdown. So, I could see a scenario where this is the guy they target.
All right. And with the final pick of the first round in Daniel Jeremiah's 2022 NFL mock draft, he has the Green Bay Packers selecting Devontae Wyatt. Now, the Packers, are going to look very different, I think, going into 2022. Yeah. And I'm not even necessarily addressing, the Aaron Rodgers situation. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. But they have a number of expiring contracts on both sides of the ball. There's some question marks. They're not going to be able to retain everybody. And I think this is actually the best team Green Bay has had over the last 3 years. Of course, they've lost in back-to-back conference championship games. I actually think this is the year that they break through, considering that they're getting basically all their stars back from injury. You know what I'm saying? It's just kind of all aligning right for Green Bay. But the pick of Devontae Wyatt is it comes a little bit as a surprise, but I'm a big fan of this player.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real with you.
Yeah.
And people might think this is blasphemous. I like Wyatt more than Jordan Davis, man. I like him more than Jordan. Why? And of course, let me preface that by saying, let me just state that Jordan Davis is phenomenal at what he does. He is phenomenal at what he does. But over the last couple of drafts, we haven't necessarily seen like a quintessential 3 technique, right? That pass rushing interior defensive lineman, and that type of guy changes the landscape of your defense, because the quickest way to get the quarterback isn't bending the edge.
No sign.
It's up the middle. It's up the middle. And Devontae Wyatt is twitched up, man. He moves differently, man.
Right.
The big boy, but he moves differently.
I got him. My first note on him is, you blink, you will miss him. Because I'm watching him like, whoa, what just happened? I had to replay it a couple. I'm like, listen, it's crazy.
Listen, when I started watching him, I got, and of course, the player that came to mind doesn't necessarily play that role,
right?
But Jeffrey Simmons, when we were doing our evaluation of Jeffrey Simmons, we were like, a guy that size shouldn't be moving like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? He just Wyatt's agility, is scary at that type of size, and that creates issues for interior offensive linemen, man. It really puts them in a bind. Like I said, Green Bay could go in any number of different directions. They got expiring contracts in terms of Alan Lazard and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think on the defensive side of the ball, you got to figure out, long-term Rashawn Gary. Are the Smith brothers going to be, with the team beyond 2022? Adrian Amos, who's a quality safety, I think his contract's coming to the end. So, like, there's a lot of question marks here, but I'm banging with DJ on this one because I'm a big fan of this player. I
have a feeling he actually may go higher in this draft than most people want to give him credit for, because he was using a myriad of ways. Man was dropping back into coverage. Sure. Listen, and his ability to his lateral movement and let's see here. His pacing, like he be setting them offensive linemen. I'm like, this guy.
Yeah, you see why I lean towards him over Jordan. Like when everybody's talking about Jordan Davis, I'm like, yo, but you don't see 95?
Yeah, no,
y'all not watching 95?
But let me say this though. He was able to do a lot of the stuff he was able to do because of Davis was taking on the double teams. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So of course. So you drop Wyatt next to Kenny Clark and you run it.
Okay. All right. I'm with it. I'm with it.
All right, man. That's gonna do it. That's gonna do it for our mock draft reaction of Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft for 2022.
And we need y'all to like, subscribe, and share the video. Don't be selfish. We're trying to get to 4K. What are we trying to get to 4K by when, bro? Let's put a target on. Can we put a target on it?
By the end of the draft, man.
By the end of the draft, we're trying to get
by the end of the draft.
Help us out, man, because we're gonna have Senior Bowl. We're gonna have plenty of reaction to mocks, our own mocks, and also we got some Senior Bowl stuff coming up for y'all. Usually our biggest videos on the one-on-ones. Gonna have a lot more one-on-ones this year in terms of corners, receivers, defensive linemen. It's gonna be we're gonna flood the channel with all that stuff, and
one-stop shop for your draft needs, man.
Yeah, we got you, man.
We got you,
man. And by the way, hit us down in the comment section if you want us to do a little scouting report on 5-play scouting report on a particular player, that you want to see, because we're going to continue to push those out for you guys.